What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm college football live stream here. We got week 11 coming at you. Early main slate starting up in about an hour and a half. Appreciate you guys all tuning in on this Saturday morning. As usual, me and Pete Call here. Pete, how you doing this morning?
Doing good. You said week 11. Wow, it feels like we just started this, right? It's like last
We're
week
rolling
there
through, man. We are rolling through. I know it's
bowl season.
right. We got about a month. We got you and me are both covering college basketball for DFS Alarm, Fantasy Alarm. So appreciate everyone that's been tuning into those playbooks, and hopefully soon enough we'll be doing some live streams for those slates coming up. Once we get probably after college football finishes up. But as you mentioned, we got almost bowl season coming up for that. So, but we're helping you guys every Saturday morning like we normally do. Mention just go on the Fantasy Alarm Discord chat to get any questions in that you might have, lineup questions, roster, this player versus this player, that kind of thing. Cash GPP will help you guys out with all that. And check out the DFS Alarm playbook that I have out for the early slate, and then Pete has the night slate out for tonight's slate at 7 p.m. Eastern. And FanDuel, they have the all day slate there. So just we'll help you guys build lineups on FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever you guys need. We'll be focusing just on the early games out on the DraftKings slate today because that's what we normally do. And the lineup locks for all the noon games is coming up in about an hour and a half. And we'll have some injuries. And we were talking before we went live here, Pete. Just a few injuries today. Obviously, I say that now, and we'll have some big name player like a Garrett Wilson that's out at the last second here. But we'll see. But we'll go through that shortly here. But if anything, injury news breaks, we will have that for you as we always do. But let's just dive into the slate, Pete. I mean, overall thoughts before we get into any specific players. Is there any game or matchup that immediately stood out to you for this slate?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's kind of a tough build. This is not. I like it. I think that hopefully it won't be as chalky as normal, but it's a tough build. So you got to get your values right. And there's no one game. I like the Oklahoma Baylor game. I like that. I think that's gonna. I kind of see Baylor actually maybe pulling an upset there.
They could.
But honestly, there's really not one game. I'm like Miami, Florida is probably the Miami Florida State game that would be my one GPP stack, and then maybe Oklahoma Baylor. They'd be the two games I think you wanna look at, but there's nothing that's like a crazy like an Ole Miss Alabama game or something like that.
Yeah, there's no totals in the 70s. No. We'll obviously probably get one of these games that goes into the 70s at the end. But Purdue Ohio State is the highest over-under we have at 65. And that's been raising up a few points over the last few days. Ohio State's still like 3 touchdown favorites, though, in that game. So, but, either side of that one is interesting for DFS purposes. You mentioned Oklahoma Baylor. Oklahoma is now only 4-point favorites in that one, and earlier in this week they were 6.5 point favorites over Baylor, and it's been slowly going in the Bears' direction. But that's a 62.5 over under right now. Maryland, Michigan State, and then UCF, SMU, both at 61.5 over under. And then Miami, Florida State at 61. So those are like the 5 games that are at the 60 total and above. But normally we have maybe a couple more than that. I feel like this is, we have a bunch of games that are lower scoring. So it kind of, we always say like it kind of crosses teams off, right? Like, which makes it a little easier for us. But maybe some players will be more chalky, right? In cash, I would say. And I think let's just start there with quarterback. I mean, Caleb Williams at the top of this position. I don't think anybody's gonna be paying for that in cash. I mean, GPP, go for it. I feel like the popular quarterback will end up being Van Dyke from Miami. And you're a Miami guy, Pete. I mean, this game versus Florida State is going to be just like no one plays defense on either side.
No.
So you can look at both sides of this game and just kind of game stack if you want. But Van Dyke, I mean, 8K on DraftKings and affordable on FanDuel as well.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth. My problem is because I mean, personally, I think Baby Tua is going to be the most popular quarterback because of the price.
He'll be the other one. Yep.
And I'm going. I mean, just get Caleb Williams out of the way. I think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback on the slate. If you had the money, if we weren't playing salaries and all that, you would play Caleb Williams. But yeah, I think Van Dyke is the second best quarterback on the slate. I'm not sure if I can get up to him like in cash with that 8K salary. But I've learned the last month or two to go cheaper at quarterback. But Van Dyke he's the highest quarterback in the country by far. And let me see, he's averaging over 380 passing yards over the last 3 weeks. Over 3 touchdowns per game, over 31 DK points, and the FSU defense is terrible. So if I could get Van Dyke in my lineup, I would love to. I just feel like even running Van Dyke and Baby Tua is going to be, I think it's going to be tough getting some of these other guys you want, these running backs and receivers. But definitely, if you can get Van Dyke in your lineup, I think price is not too bad. 8K. If he was 7K, he'd be 100% in my lineups. But that's I think may push some people off him. But yeah, beside Williams, he's your best quarterback. I'm done with this CJ Stroud experiment. I've played him too much. Keep getting burned by him. So and then the other side, Jordan Travis. I mean, I think Jordan Travis is going to be popular too, right? I mean, quarterbacks is not that great this week.
Yeah, so we had Travis like kind of questionable because he was out last week, right, with an illness. Right. And we had Mackenzie Milton in there, but Travis, presumably back in there because he's been practicing this week. That is a late game though, so maybe just a little, if he is out, make sure you can pivot down, or pivot up, I guess, if you want. But yeah, as you mentioned with Tagovailoa, I mean, he is like. This Michigan State pass defense has not been stopping anything. And they got, you mentioned last week about O'Connell from Purdue, who lit them up. And, I didn't play him, and I wish I did. As soon as I, saw how that game was going, and he was just having any way he wanted, him and David Bell in that game. And, interestingly enough, O'Connell's only 5,400 even after that big game, and he's going against Ohio State. I could see him being a popular play as well, just because he's still so cheap, and we know Purdue's going to be throwing a ton to try to keep up with Ohio State. People think, the fact that the spread is still 3 touchdowns, I think says a lot that people are expecting Ohio State to win this game comfortably. But there's a good chance Purdue can still keep it close, throughout the game, and maybe it's kind of a few late scores that the Buckeyes can get to pull away. But wouldn't be surprised if O'Connell's keeping this close. And we just know he's probably going to be throwing a ton. Like last week against Michigan State, he had 54 attempts and has had 40 plus attempts in 4 of the last 5 games, and so he's. And it's worth noting, like he has been. I know there was like a timeshare with Purdue, like they're kind of shuffling in quarterbacks, but he's been the guy, and he's having some success back there, and it's been more of a pass heavy offense than I think we originally expected with Purdue. But yeah, they will be passing a ton in this game. So yeah, like when you compare O'Connell versus like Talia, Tagovailoa, that's interesting. But yeah, I think like the matchup against Michigan State is gonna be hard to get away from, right? I mean,
yeah, you have to. I mean, one thing Talia's gonna be. I see him. He's gonna be over 50% owned, and could he burn us? Could be a trap. Yeah, I mean, we've seen him throw some really bad games. But every quarterback, we've been talking about every week, that plays Michigan State. Michigan State right now is giving up 326 yards per game in the air, which is, I think, by far the worst in the nation. They're almost like the Missouri pass defense.
They are
Missouri rush defense. You just pick on them, and O'Connell actually I think is a better quarterback than we all thought. I mean, but we saw what he did last week. So You got to play Tua. You just got to lock him in your cash. But one thing about these quarterbacks I'm noticing, I'm only looking at like 6 quarterbacks. I think that are actually not even 6. If we take Caleb Williams out and Stroud, there are actually 4 quarterbacks you can use pretty much in cash. So we just mentioned them: Travis, Tallulah, Van Dyke, and O'Connell. But I still think O'Connell is going to drop back 35. I mean, he's going to drop back 35, 40 times today and pass the ball. So it is a little bit tougher matchup against Ohio State. But Ohio State does not exactly have the greatest pass defense world either. They get them 247 in the air. So right now I'm building around O'Connell and Tallulah. I don't like it. I mean, it's kind of gross, but I think it's going to get you what you want with some of these stud running backs we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and we'll get into those like in a sec here. But yeah, you can fit a lot in if you go with those 2 cheap quarterbacks. Right. And honestly, I mean, like someone like O'Connell can match, DFS points wise what Van Dyke can do, or even for that matter, like Caleb Williams. I mean, it's very possible that they put up the same amount of production for significantly cheaper down the price pool there. I do want to mention. It does
worry me about Van Dyke. It does worry me that clunker game could be coming. I mean, that is in the back of my mind a little bit. So,
I mean, yeah, that is like. Especially, like today is on the road at Florida State. But I just look at this defense. Like Florida State hasn't stopped anything.
No,
yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah. I just expect this game to be high scoring. Maybe Miami doesn't win. I know they are 2.5 point favorites right now. But like maybe they lose a close game, but I think they still score like 30 plus points in this game. So but I was going to mention Jerry Bohannon for Baylor. I think, you mentioned this game's going to be high scoring. We expect, I think, Baylor to be throwing more, I think, just because, this week, more than they have been in recent games. And I just think Bohannon's going to be involved. And he also bring some dual threat. He's been rushing for touchdowns all year. But I just feel like he's going to have to do more offensively, whether it's running or throwing, to kind of keep this close against Oklahoma. I don't know, thoughts on him, I guess, because he's in the same range as like someone like Will Rogers. If you're looking at like GPPs from off the less popular guys like him, you could throw Peyton Thorne in there from Michigan State. Brock Purdy's interesting on this slate too. I mean, where are you going if like in tournaments out of all those?
That's a good call on Bohannon. Because Bohannon's one of those other ones. I mean, you feel dirty when you play him your lineup, but at the end of the day, he usually seems to get it done.
Right.
And Oklahoma, the defense has been strong, but they can't cover receivers that well, from what I've seen. So I think he's gonna have a good stat line today. You said he can run a little bit. I get projections around 25 points. So it's 7.2. That's 7.2. That's not a bad point per dollar. Yeah, he's been a rat. I mean, he's been a little erratic, but he's got 5 picks in the last 3 games. So, but still, I mean, you kind of don't want to ignore him because this Oklahoma defense. Oklahoma's ranked 114 in the country to pass defense. So,
yeah,
you want a piece of the Baylor attack. I mean, of course, GVP only. So yeah, I like Bohannon. Originally, I was kind of on Tanner Mordecai, but everything we're seeing now with Mordecai looks like Preston Stone's going to get some looks today. So you don't only play, especially when you're playing Mordecai in cash, but he's got a good matchup there too against UCF. But Stone's they want to see what they got with Stone. Stone's a stud. He's going to be a big DFS star. So GVP only. Bo Nix is Bo Nix. You can beat Mississippi State through the air, I guess. Sean Clifford's not bad at 5'8".
I know.
His price dropped.
He's interesting because he was like a smash play last week and has kind of like O'Connell, like no price jump at all, even though they had a big game last week.
That's a good question. You're looking at Clifford and O'Connell, $400 difference. I mean, yeah, Michigan's a tough matchup, but is O'Connell
I think
that much better than Clifford to be playing O'Connell in cash? Now, I really haven't been thinking about Clifford much, but
I mean, both of those are
good games.
They're both interesting, like in cash, like we mentioned. Tonga Bailoa might be popular as a super flex in cash this week. or as your lead guy. But if you want to like pivot off those as a lower rostered guy, it would be O'Connell or Clifford, I think, for basically in the same price range. But I think just people will kind of ignore them when they see Tungabello is less than 6K. I'll throw Bo Nix in there too. I mean, he could be an interesting guy on this slate too. I mean, he's been able to have good games. He's been so inconsistent DFS wise, but he can, in three of the last 5 games, he has 27 plus DraftKings points. So, and he's been
kind of due.
Yeah, I feel like he's always a guy that plays better at home, but who knows? I feel like it's always a gamble with him, obviously.
There's one other quarterback, actually. One other.
Yeah.
If we do see that Donovan Mcculley is starting, it looks like they're leaning toward either Penix or Tuttle being back. But if Donovan Mcculley of Indiana does start at 4,900, and with that dual threat upside, I mean, you're kind of dipping there, though. But I think, I mean, he doesn't need much. He doesn't need to make, what's he need, 15 DK points to make value, because the kid can run. So I'm not saying go run out this kid and play this kid in cash, but I'm starting to see him. He's popping a little bit today. So if Penix or Tuttle don't come back.
Yeah, listen, he put up 20 DraftKings points against Maryland.
He can't throw. He can't throw at all.
No.
It's a terrible arm on him.
It's crazy. I remember when we were talking about Jack Tuttle as a play, and I'm looking back, and I think it was in Week 7 against Michigan State's pass defense, as we were talking about with Maryland today. But Jack Tuttle threw it 52 times in that game, and only had 4.5 DraftKings points, which is honestly hard to do.
I played him like the week before that. And he cashed the thing on a main slate, and I was like, never again. And good thing I didn't play him that game.
Right?
How do you throw 52 times and get 4 DK points? That's bad.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot over to running back, because with Indiana, this is a situation we got to monitor, and this is a noon game coming up, noon Eastern. So we'll know, hopefully. But Stephen Carr, the lead running back, is questionable. Suffered an ankle injury last week. It's honestly, we have no idea if he's going to play or not. I would think he sits, because it sounds like from the head coach Tom Allen this week, just not being confident that he was going to play. I think, and it sounded like it was serious last week, but it's like he avoided a serious injury. No breaks or anything, but it seems like it's just a really bad sprain. I mean, I think it's hard for him to play. I mean, listen, I'm no football player, but I've sprained my ankle before. I mean, like a week later, I highly doubt. Yeah, high ankle sprain. Yeah. So if he's out, we got presumably we have Chris Childers as the lead guy at 4,500. I mean, if we get word that Carr is out and Childers is warming up as the lead back, I expect Childers to be popular, right? On DraftKings. This game's only on the DraftKings slate, but 4,500 is dirt cheap for a lead back for a favorite. Indiana team is favored by 7 here at home.
Yeah, it's a good question. Say Childers is actually a walk on. So say we see Childers warming up at the first team at 45, because like right now I have like 1 or 2 value receivers, but is Childers a safer play than some of these value receivers? I think he may be. I mean, Rutgers got a bad offensive line. I mean, Indiana's got a bad offensive line. Rutgers right now is giving up. Actually, doesn't have a bad rush defense. They're giving up 16 fantasy points a game to RB1s. So, but once again, you get a guy that. I see Rutgers is second to last in rush defense in the Big Ten, but they played some real good. They played some. You talk about Michigan, Ohio State, and all those guys. But I mean that might be the question of the day. I mean, how many touches is Childers going to get? I don't think Stephen Carr was actually a star either, and he was able to get down a little bit. Then for our luck, you have this guy Davion Urban Davion Poindexter or something. He's another walk on. Next thing he'll be the one getting all the touches.
Honestly, last week or this week rather, when I was doing research on the slate and this Indiana backfield, I saw an article that said, Indiana beat writer that said that Urban Poindexter might get the start if Carr is out, but that it'll basically be a split backfield between Childers and Urban Poindexter. And he's been kind of the backup all year. And Childers, as you mentioned, maybe it was a situation last week where we got 11 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown in a game that Michigan was winning already. So it's maybe they just gave him some run to get out there. But
what's Poindexter's price?
He is 3,600. If we get word that he's the starter, definitely the lead back.
If we get you might want to rock him. Yeah,
he could be and 3,600. We always say this with guys that cheap. It's just they don't have to do much to return value, and if that means that you can fit in another stud on your lineup, it's a big difference. So, all right, that's an injury situation we'll monitor, and it's a little over an hour until that kickoff. So we will be monitoring warm-ups and see what the situation is in there. And I mentioned this before, but if you're just tuning in, the Discord chat after we stop going live here, we'll be answering questions throughout on there. So definitely get in there on the Fantasy Alarm, DFS Alarm Discord just to get any late breaking news, especially throughout the day, because we got the late kickoffs, and I assume we're going to have some random player that's out that's going to affect lineup builds. So, there's always that we're providing you, me and Pete. But at the top end of running back, and we were talking about this earlier, trying to get in these studs, a lot of high price guys, and I think like in cash, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Braylon Allen, and Travion Henderson. I'll throw Jalen Knighton in there. I think all these guys are very good plays. Which way are you going, especially if you're thinking, you're paying down for a quarterback or two, paying down for some receivers. You're probably trying to fit two of these high-priced running backs at least in your lineup. So which way are you going?
First of all, to me, Braylon Allen at 8,200 is a cash lock. With Malusi's out for the year.
Okay.
As long as, I'm assuming he's going to get 25 to 30 touches. He was getting 15 and 20 even with Malusi splitting time and was still putting up 100 yards every game. He's had like 100 yards every game. So I think the kid's elite. He's a stud. Northwestern is allowing 224 yards on the ground, which is horrible. So Wisconsin's just going to pound the rock all day. And Braylon's going to get his. Braylon Allen. I also have a little bit interest in GVPs in his backup. That kid, what's his name? Julius Davis, I think it is. Davis at only 3K. Because even if Allen gets 25 touches, Davis may get 10, 12 touches. I think last week he got like 7. He could easily score a touchdown at 40, 50 points at 3K. So Davis, to me, is a GVP play. But back to cash. It's all about Allen. My second running back is Kenny Walker III. Once again, Maryland's a horrible rush defense like Northwestern. They're allowing 35 points a game to running backs. We know Walker should carry 25, 30 times in this one. So I'm locking those two in. I love Breece Hall, but mainly I don't think I can get in with that price of 9,500. I think Hall's probably the top runner on the slate. And then if I go third, like in my flex, I would love to get in Jalen Knighton. Knighton's been straight stud. He's another one. So I think 24 every week, 24 DK points every week. His last 4 weeks since he started starting. Yeah, 4 straight games since what's his name went out, Cameron Harris. This Miami offense is starting to roll with Van Dyke looking more comfortable, Knighton having some big games, and the Miami defense on their side has been terrible too. So it's like this game's going to be back and forth. Neither team playing much defense, and I think like Knighton's a good call there, and I wrote about him in the playbook too because I like him as well. But if he can't get it done on the ground somehow, he can still pass the ball. He can still catch out of the backfield.
Yeah, he's being involved as a pass catcher. But yeah, coming off a monster game last week against Georgia Tech, 162 rushing yards. That's crazy. But yeah, the Kenneth Walker, he'll be popular in cash for sure. and especially Allen too. I think both of them are like, that's where people are going to go, which makes Travion Henderson, I think, really interesting for tournaments, just because people aren't going to play him as much when they're surrounded by these other top backs. And Henderson's, he's been really good. He's been really solid, and he's also involved as a pass catcher. And if this game is, Ohio State by 3 touchdowns, maybe they lean on the run more in the second half and give him work. Like they did last week, last couple of weeks against Penn State and Nebraska. So, yeah, I mean, I like him, but he's just not going to be as highly rostered as a guy like Allen or Walker. So, but yeah, good call. But good calls with Allen. The backup you mentioned, Julius Davis. But he is on DraftKings. He's mid price.
Right.
So do we know that he's for sure the backup? Because
no, and we don't. And I talked to actually some people that are big Wisconsin people actually last night this morning, and they're all over him. But everything I'm seeing is not like he is the backup. But he got that run last week too, because it was a blowout. But everything is pushing toward this Davis. So once again, GPP only. You're taking a risk, but it may be a nice risk.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm not up to date on Wisconsin's depth chart, but I know if you're looking at like the running back pool on DraftKings, they have a ton of guys there that are cheap, but and some of them get carries here and there, but I think a lot of them are fullbacks, right? I'm not sure, like Davis, I think is like he's the guy that did get some run last week when Malusi went out as like the running back, but I think some of these guys are fullbacks and just not worth looking at. But yeah, when Malusi was healthy, and maybe just because he was more talented than like a Julius Davis, but him and Allen were both getting double-digit carries and both being productive on the ground because Wisconsin's run game, O-line is just very good, and they will dominate this game against Northwestern. I mean, they're 24.5-point favorites. And Northwestern, as you mentioned, is terrible. One of the worst run defenses in the country. So this is a smash spot for Allen.
It is. This Allen's a big kid. I saw some pictures of him. I saw on social media. He's a big kid. They had him working out.
Dude, he looks awesome when he wears number 0. And he just looks like a beast when he just a running back wearing number 0 out there.
He's a kid, still young.
Yeah, right. Him and Travion Henderson, true freshman. This is crazy. But yeah, so other running backs on the slate. I mean, a lot of these guys, like it's amazing that we're looking past a lot of these guys just because of how many stud running backs are on the slate. But if like Hassan Haskins could have a huge game, especially if Blake Corum's out. Abram Smith, just in that higher scoring Oklahoma Baylor game. He's definitely in play. Zamir White, with Georgia being big favorites, but probably being in a closer game, which will give him more touches, more carries. Jaquavius Marks from Mississippi State just catches a ton of passes to keep his floor high. So like all these guys, we're looking past them. Just because I think you and me both, Pete, would rather pay up for running back on this slate. But, GPPs or lower rostered cash guys, I think all those guys I mentioned are in play.
Quorum is definitely ruled out. I just saw that.
Oh, he is? Okay. So we got word on that. Yeah, that's a noon game. So
there's some great GPP plays. And my thing is I don't want to get stuck on the outside looking in when Walker's got 3 touchdowns today and ran 240 and saying they're Braylon Allen. But you just named all these. One name you didn't name is Letty Brown. This may be Letty Brown's low water mark at 6,100. I mean, that KSU rush defense is solid, but I still got another gut feeling. I can feel a Letty Brown game coming today. I still think he's a good running back.
Yeah, but, he impressed me a couple weeks ago against Iowa State's rush defense. Had 109.
Exactly. He's playing up to his competition. We've seen him play bad against some bad defenses, so. Brown would be my sneaky play today, especially I like that price of 6,100. Definitely like it.
Yeah, when you see a guy like with his talent he's that cheap,
you gotta look. Yeah, you gotta pay. Yeah.
Just a side note on that one. Earlier today we saw that Backup quarterback Garrett Green is out for West Virginia, and this is a guy. Out? Yeah, he is out. So this is a guy that's he's the backup, but he's kind of been used as like kind of like a ball carrier, like the Taysom Hill kind of role, kind of for West Virginia,
right.
just getting some carries, and still getting snaps, even though he's the backup.
But I meant to bring that up actually in the quarterbacks. I meant to bring his name up because Jared Green is terrible.
Yeah,
and there was talk that Green may actually get more playing time. Obviously not now, so can nix that.
It was early today. He did not travel with the team, with this game being at K-State. So he is out, which I think just gives what I was going to say is gives Letty Brown just more safer touches. Just he's going to get pretty much all the work in that backfield.
Yep. Now you see where you're going with this. Yeah, you have. Yeah. I'm thinking quarterback. No, now you see. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, yeah, I was trying
to vulture him, right?
I was trying to flip it all around, go back to the Letty Brown play.
I played Brown a few weeks ago, and I was all over him, and I kept seeing. That's my first actually. I didn't know much about Green. I kept seeing Green's name popping up. And I realized it was the quarterback. So good call. So, yeah, I would upgrade Brown a little bit. Definitely.
Yeah. You mentioned 6,100 is just the cheapest we've seen him. And I mean, yeah, like K-State's only 6 point that's actually gone down. They're 5-point favorites now at home, which is interesting. Maybe West Virginia keeps that close and possibly wins outright. Which if they're, if we look up, and this is a noon game, so if we look up, in an hour or 2 hours, and West Virginia is, leading, and then all of a sudden Letty Brown's getting a bunch of work as kind of the lean on ball carrier with his team up, at some point, who knows? So, and by the way, just a note on the other side of that game, Deuce Vaughn at 9,700 is insane. I know he's been having some big games, but you just can't play him in cash at that price.
He's more than Brees. And GPP, great. He's going to be low owned. You know that people are not going to play him at that price. So, if you have room for him, I would throw him in some GPPs if you're multi-entering. But yeah, way too expensive for Deuce. And he's had a good season. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
What about I love Adrian Smith. But that Oklahoma rush defense is tough. So that's he's been good. I do, there's been slates where he's been my favorite play on the slate, and he had good games. Last 3 weeks he's rushed for 100+ yards, but I don't like him. If I'm just comparing him to other guys, I'd rather pay up for 1,000 more for Allen, say, in cash. But I mean, he's got upside in this high scoring game. Maybe it's a game where they can Baylor, if it's tight enough, they can run it more, and they don't have to pass as much. But we'll see. I think like in tournaments though, I'd rather go like Jashaun Corbin. He's right there in the same price range. Right, yeah. Yep.
I think he's a bit more upside against Miami's defense.
And that defense is allowing almost 30 points per game to RB. So
yeah,
there's just two names I want to actually bring up and even ask you. Both of them are actually popping more. Dylan Johnson's popping from Miss State.
Yes.
We know he gets work out of the backfield. But another name that's actually popped more is Connor Hayward. Connor Hayward from Michigan State. Now he's a tight end, but DK still has him listed as a running back, and he's getting like 5 targets per game. So, and I'm seeing some projections, some double-digit projections with him on ownership. So, I don't know much about him, but I just know he's a tight end that DK is listing as a running back.
Interesting, yeah. He's min price. See, I kind of just look past him because I see Kenny Walker, and I'm like not looking at anybody else in that backfield. But that is interesting. The Dylan Johnson though, I wanted to touch on that. I mean, I wrote a bit in the playbook. He kind of like he's a poor man's Jaquavius Marks, because both these running backs get a ton of passing volume, reception volume, and targets in this Mississippi State, air raid offense. They both just have that floor. And I think like 3,900 is too cheap for a guy that is going to give you, 4 to 5 or 6 catches. It might not be a ton of yardage, but like I think like in a PPR format like DraftKings, he's going to give you a decent floor. And he has upside to score a touchdown or have 50 to 60 total yards as well with those catches. So I like it. I like that call a lot. And I think like he's an interesting value in cash if you just want like a safe.
Is this a cash play, you think? Because I'm seeing his ownership popping a little bit.
I think he's definitely a safer cash play. And I wanted to compare him actually directly to Ulysses Bentley with SMU. And this is an early game, so we're trying to get some word on if he's going to be playing, if he's going to be, last week he was warming up ahead of the game. He's been dealing with an ankle injury, but he hasn't played. And, these snaps have been limited. And last week he warmed up but didn't even play. We'll see if he's actually playing, but if he's out there, if we get word that he's out there, he's starting, 3,700 is extremely cheap for a guy that has like 100 plus total yards and multiple touchdowns upside. I don't know. What do you think about Bentley here?
I mean, yeah, definitely just because of the price you got to, and we know one thing about Bentley is he's proven. Now, I was pulling him up as you were talking. Now, Sonny Dykes was saying that they rushed him back from injury too quick against Houston before he, retweaked that ankle and all that. So everything I'm seeing is leaning toward him not playing. But I would just hate to throw him in cash and we see him warming up. How many times we've seen guys also warming up too, and next thing you know, they didn't.
Yeah,
I can't remember. It just happened. It just happened recently. We saw somebody warming up and jumped on and realized he didn't get a snap the whole game. But yeah, you definitely just got to pay attention because of that price. And we know, Bentley's he's a good running back. So, Trey Siggers doesn't impress me anymore. I was on Siggers a little bit the last couple weeks, but I just don't think he's. So yeah, I guess Bentley. I'm just afraid he's not healthy yet.
Yeah, I feel like they might not rush him back either. And SMU being 7-point favorites, but it's just a high total game, and the UCF defense is shaky. So like I could see why people are going to go there if there's word that he's playing. I think he's maybe just a tournament play, but a high upside. If we're like comparing him, if you're looking for a cheap running back, there's obviously not a ton of good values on this slate if you're looking for a high upside GPP guy. But like if you compare him to, on DraftKings, anybody else in this price range, I think he's worth a shot. If we get word that he is playing, which is even if he is playing, you have no idea how many snaps or touches he's going to get. So that's why I think it's risky. But do want to mention him because I do think there's a chance he just has a huge game too. That's always he's got the talent to do that, but who knows?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Donovan Mcculley's taking snaps as first string quarterback. Tuttle's out there. Michael Penix is in street clothes, so it does put McCulley, I think, in some conversation in GBP because of his legs and how cheap he is in quarterbacks.
Yeah, 4,900 on DraftKings.
Doesn't take much for him. He calls his number, runs in a touchdown once. Throws for 120 yards. He throws for 100 yards. 40 yards rushing. Not a bad play, really. I think you're going to see his ownership pop a little bit if we do see you starting. So,
yeah.
Didn't mean to change the subject there, but
those we're here to give some injury news. The other one, if we're pivoting over to receiver now, people aren't really going to be playing him, but it looks like Andrell Anthony is warming up. The Michigan's best receiver. In the last couple weeks, he's only had one good game, but it was a huge game, and he was just dealing with an injury. But it looks like he's going to be back.
Stephen Carr's not warming up. Running backs are out there. Stephen Carr's not with them. He's not. So once again, it's nothing confirmed. But So we do want to see who's warming up with that first team then, these Indiana runners.
Yeah, if we get word that it is, Childers, and we'll see.
Man, even if to see trap sometimes these guys, man.
Yeah, I can see it. I could see it being a split workload anyway. Even if we do get news that it is Childers, starting, I could see it just being, they run a few guys out there. So I do think it's risky, but 4,500 is cheap enough that it's worth the risk in tournaments maybe. But I think it's fringe cashy for Childers.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like minimum price. 45 is a little bit borderline then for a kid we're not really sure about.
Exactly, yeah. The Mccully call, Donovan Mcculley for Indiana. That's interesting. 4,900, as you mentioned, he could run in and touchdown and return value for not a ton of a price there. Looking at receiver, Pete, we got, ton of good talent on here, just like running back, in the high end range. If you're paying up for one or two guys, I know we were talking before, David Bell is too cheap. I think Chris Olave is too cheap. Both these guys are just, they shouldn't be below 7K on DraftKings, and especially when you compare them to, some of the guys above. But I think those two guys could be popular, right?
Yeah, and right now, before we went on, as I was messing with the lineup, right now, I want Bell and Olave in my main lineup. Olave's like my call. Olave's my call of the day for having a big game.
Okay.
But now I could just see that. For me, 6'6" for Chris Olave is a great value. We've seen the last few weeks where Wilson's got his. The other kid, the slot receiver last week, had a huge game, and I can see Olave being in Stroud's ear all week, saying, "Okay, well now it's my time. When's it gonna be my time?" So Olave is my call as probably. At the end of the day, it's probably more of a GPP play, but I'm probably playing him in cash. And David Bell at 6'7". Now I think his salary dropped $700 after that huge game last week. Now Ohio State's defense is improving, but David Bell is matchup proof.
Yeah.
And I just saw a stat: the highest scoring fantasy player against the Buckeyes 7 straight weeks has been a wide receiver, reaching at least 20 points in 4 of those games. And it's going to be Bell, because he's Bell's the alpha there. He's the main guy. I'm a huge Bell guy, and it does bring me to I also have interest in the other kid for a couple of other Purdue receivers. I love Jackson Anthrop too.
Anthrop's cheap.
Yeah, I've gotten real lucky with Anthrop this year. I've played him in some games and I'm lucky with him. So, but I'm on Bell and Olave to me, and I got dropped down and finally like a cheapie like Raheem Jarrett as my third receiver.
Yeah, the Bell call is good. You mentioned Ohio State's defense is improving, but they're going to be up big. And the way for Purdue to just kind of try to keep pace is going to be passing it. We know this. Bell's floor is just so good. Shout out to Kangas, man. He in my playbook, I mentioned that let me see the exact word I said. I said Bell is arguably the best wide receiver in college football, and he continues to put up big numbers every week. And Kangas, man, I think is a Buckeyes fan. He said that you forget about Olave. Olave, I think pure talent wise, I do think Bell is better. If we're talking
I think so too.
NFL prospects, I think Bell is the better prospect. Olave is a big play waiting to happen anytime he touches the ball, for sure.
Bell's the best receiver right now.
Yeah, I do think Bell is better. And if we're talking about receivers, I do think Garrett Wilson is better than Olave, talent wise. But that's all a conversation for another day. By the way, you mentioned Jackson Smith-Njigba, massive game last week, and we mentioned him as a value when
massive price jump.
Yeah, well, we mentioned him as a value when Wilson was ruled out, but Wilson is back. There's just no chance you can play him at 7,800 on DraftKings. That would be idiotic, in my opinion. As even in tournaments, like why would you play him over Wilson or Olave? So, yeah, don't play him.
Is JSN the highest? Is he the highest salaried receiver on the slate? No, Dotson. Never mind. Dotson is.
Oh yeah, we got Dotson and we got Rambo, Charleston Rambo, who's also
to me Rambo's GPP, but having great season.
Yeah, he's having some monster games lately too. And if we think this game's gonna be high scoring, then I don't mind him. But yeah,
I may regret not playing him actually.
If you're playing Van Dyke and you want to be maybe differentiate yourself a little bit from at a high price receiver and or running back, I think Rambo's a good pairing with Van Dyke because there's a good chance they connect for multiple touchdowns in this game. So I like that. I like that a lot. Looking at just like value receivers on the slate. I mean, we keep talking about playing these high running backs. So which of these values do you love? I heard about a bunch in the playbook because I know people will be needing these guys. Just a few that I mentioned were Keyshawn Smith, Charlie Kohler, the tight end from Iowa State, yet again being a good play. R.J. Sneed still too cheap. Those are more cash. You mentioned the Maryland guys, Raheem Jarrett and Marcus Fleming are both. I feel like people are going to be leaning on one of those guys, especially if they're playing Tagovailoa, just because they want to. People like to pair their quarterbacks to the receiver, and I'm one of them too. I mean, I'm going to do it. I think if I'm playing Talia, I'll either have Jarrett or Fleming because they're too cheap, going against Michigan State's bad pass defense. But any of these value guys that you are looking at to lock in here.
So my two favorite. I'm not sure if you consider 5K a value, but I'm all over Bo Melton. I think he's Indiana.
Yeah, Bo Melton's another guy. It's too cheap.
Yeah, I think he's especially with Cruikshank out. We know that it's going to be all about Melton. Shameem Jones more of a punt, but I think he's playing that same team. I like Noah Vedral. I mean, not for I'm multi-entering, but I'm definitely. I have no problem putting Bo Melton in my main lineup. We mentioned Raheem Jarrett. He's one of the top values. I have a lot of interest, and I think he's going to be a little owned. Adonai Mitchell at 3,500 for Georgia. He's one of my faves. I was looking at his snap. He's getting like 80% of the snaps. He's getting 5-6 targets a game. Going to be very under-owned. So Mitchell right now may be my 3K guy in my lineup, but I like him. I like Keegan Johnson. I think he's sneaky. And then Mario Williams at 4K. He came back from that injury, had a huge game. So I think he's going to be underlooked too a little bit as people are forgetting about Mario Williams back at 4K. Because Mario Williams should be a 5K receiver.
Yeah, and on that note, the Oklahoma receiving core, Michael Woods is expected back this week.
That's
he tweeted out that he was going to be coming back, so we'll see if he's. And this is a noon game, so hopefully we get some word officially that he's warming up. But he's interesting because he's too cheap for what he could do. Honestly, any of these Oklahoma receivers, they're all like tournament plays, but pretty decent ones. I don't know how you feel about these guys because I would love to play Marvin Mims or Jane Hazelwood. It's just really hard to trust them because either one has this year already gone for multiple touchdowns in a game, but then they'll come out with only 3 catches for 50 yards and just not get there for you. So I don't know. I mean, but so I would rather pay down for a Williams or Woods. So I do like the Williams call for sure, and Woods is I wrote about him in the playbook too, just because he's coming back and he could pop. But yeah, he's
gonna be sneaky.
Yeah.
Mike Harley,
all right.
Mike Harley's 4,200 is cheap. You put him in that Florida State Miami stack if you want. And then the other kid from Miami is real cheap. The other receiver, like 3K, Will Mallory. He's all punt plays, but
Yeah, Will Murray, tight end, right? For
Yep.
that offense. Yeah, I mentioned Keyshawn Smith. I like him. He's
Yeah,
a
we didn't talk
decent
about Keyshawn
value.
Smith. Yeah, he's fine. I guess because his price has gone to, like, what's it, 5,100? So he's definitely flying under the radar, and everybody's all over Rambo. Yeah, so Smith may actually be the call of the day there, though. And I keep kind of forgetting about him too. Be making more than one lineup.
Van Dyke has been looking his way a lot since Van Dyke took over as the starter there. And Smith is a guy that's been I feel like he's been more involved in having better games than Mike Harley, which is a crazy thing to think about in the beginning of the season. So
what you're thinking, I think you even wrote him up in your playbook. I just have no interest because I think they got a horrible quarterback. Is Ryan O'Keefe? It's kind of high price. I mean, yeah, we know he's getting looks. Well, he's had now three straight over 25 DK point games, so you can't scoff at that. It's going to be a shootout. But man, I can't deal with that UCF quarterback. I mean,
I think he's only in the GPP territory for me. I mean, if you want to differentiate from a lot of these high price receivers, I think he's the guy that's going to go, lower rostered. But his floor has been really good lately. It hasn't mattered. It hasn't mattered that it's been O'Keefe or Mikey Keene back there.
I didn't realize his floor was that good.
Yeah, he's been really good lately. And UCF just playing usually playing in higher scoring games because their defense isn't that great. But this game could turn into a shootout both ways. It looks like Dylan Gabriel's not going to play, right? I know he's.
I see he's trending to be back at some point.
Yeah, we just haven't gotten. I feel like we would have gotten word if he was playing, and I doubt that UCF would be 7-point underdogs if he was playing, honestly. So, but
who is trending is Jalen Robinson.
I was just gonna say. That's so he's expected to play today, and he's been out since like week 3. So that does hurt O'Keefe just a little bit, just because he's not going to get all of the targets that he normally does. But I think his floor is actually better than you'd think, considering the quarterback situation there. But I did write him out in the playbook because I think he's been better than people realize for DFS.
Yeah, he is. Now it caught my attention. Now I look at his numbers and they're solid.
Yeah,
decent floor.
Other receivers, I mean, so you mentioned Raheem Jarrett. Marcus Fleming is a guy that I wrote about in the playbook because he's been like too involved and to be this cheap, on especially on DraftKings at 4K. So I think he's like, if people might just play Raheem Jarrett because he's the number one in that offense, but like Fleming has been playing involved. And by the way, on a note on Maryland's receiving game, did you see the tight end Okonkwo? Did you see his stat line from last week by any chance?
No.
He had 12 catches for 85 yards against Penn State.
And what's his
He's at 4,200. So he's a guy, I actually wrote about it in the playbook like weeks ago because after all these injuries, because he was a guy that had, he's starting to see more targets. He caught a couple of touchdowns early in the year. But he's been quiet. He had been quiet lately, just getting like a couple catches each game. But last week he just exploded against Penn State. They were trailing, just playing catch up, and he was just kind of the underneath guy for Tunga Baloa. Which, I mean, honestly, it could be the case again today where he's just getting easy completion.
Yeah, 15 targets, 12 receptions.
It just crazy stat line that people have no idea happened, but. I mean, he had 22.5 DraftKings points without a touchdown, which is insane.
85 yards. Seems like every week before that, he's getting like between 4 and 5 targets. Seems like right in a game. So I guess at 4K, 4-2, whatever. That's a sneaky play there, especially if you're using Tallulah. So that's a nice little way, to kind of to be different. Kind of be differentiate a little bit. Just throw this guy in there.
How do you
say Okonkwo?
Okonkwo, yeah. I actually think he's been getting enough targets to have like a decent floor. I mean, it's not trustworthy by any means, but
No, he is 30 yards, 56, 23, 44. You're pretty much getting three to five receptions a game.
Yeah.
Than last week. So.
I'm currently doing a Twitter search for Ulysses Bentley because I need an answer on this. And we got a Kangas man in the Discord asking any word on Ulysses yet. Honestly, I mean, it's one of those situations where we're just relying on these beat writers, which is annoying. I think what we said earlier, if you're tuning in now, he's a risky play just because we don't know how many snaps or touches he's going to get, even if he is healthy and active and out there and dressed. And last week he warmed up, but he didn't play at all. And, he's suffering an ankle injury. So it's the kind of thing he could be playing and start having a good game and then roll his ankle and then he's out. So it's obviously a risky play. So, but the matchup against UCF is very favorable. And he's only 3,700 on DraftKings. So I get it if you want to play him. And I think if we got official word that, yes, he's starting, he's fully recovered, then he'd be a lock, but that's not the case. So I think play at your own risk if you want, Ulysses Bentley. I do think, we talked about it earlier, but if you're just if you had him in your lineup and you don't want to play him anymore and you're looking for a quick pivot, Dylan Johnson at 3,900 is a really good, we were talking about him earlier, is this just a safer floor than you'd think. Catching a ton of passes from Mississippi State. So if you're looking for someone just quick to pivot off there, that's an option. Any other, before we sign off here, any other final thoughts on the slate as a whole? Has your opinion on your lineup building changed? Because I remember before we went live, you were talking about how, trying to get in these running backs and trying to get in, both Olave and Bell in the same lineup. I think that, I think a lot of people won't be doing that. I think people will be choosing between them two. But you're going with both of them, right?
That may be my way to be different. Actually, somebody just asked a question about who's at Chalky's position, which actually gives a chance to kind of roll through that quick because as you're making lineups, I think Tulu was your chalk at quarterback. Running backs, your chalk's going to be Braylon Allen. We're going to see him probably 40-50% owned. And then after that, maybe Kenny Walker. The two guys I want Allen and Walker. I want Tallulah. And then at wide receiver, your chalk's going to be – nobody's going to be really chalky. I think David Bell, because of his price at 6'7", he's probably going to be 35% owned. He's probably your chalk at receiver. But, I'm trying to get Bell and Olave together with Walker and the Wisconsin kid, Braylon Allen. So –
I completely agree on those guys. I do think one of the Maryland guys, whether it's Jarrett or Fleming, I feel like the one of those guys is gonna be popular. Probably Jarrett, just because he's the number one there. And 4,500 is too cheap. So
do you see Fleming? Fleming's 4K. Is Fleming still you got no problem playing him in cash over Jarrett? If you need to save the $500.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Listen, Fleming's been plenty involved, and he's a true freshman and just getting a lot of run. I think they're just letting him. They're trying to see all right, is this a guy that's going to be part of the offense next year with Tagovailoa still there? So he's been for 3 straight weeks. He's had plenty of involvement, at least 4 receptions in 3 straight games, getting plenty of targets.
At least 6 targets.
Yeah, so I do think he's trustworthy enough for cash, and it kind of similar production as to Raheem Jarrett, but Jarrett's a very good play in my opinion. So I like both of them.
Look at stat lines. I'm kind of comparing them. Yeah, obviously, $500 difference. Jarrett is obviously looks like the better play. He's the. He is the alpha, considered the alpha of that team right now, though, right? We have seen him have some games too. The one game he had 9 targets and 11. I remember the 9 targets and 11 yards. He saved the day, I think, with a touchdown at the end, right? That was the Iowa game. He had the touchdown at the end. That was the day. I think he was all chalk. He was a chalk day.
Yeah, well, that was a game that Demas Jr. got hurt. So that was that was a weird game for him, just because he saw a ton more targets. Yeah. By the way, just a quick note on some line movement. I just think it's interesting to note here. Wisconsin has moved up a couple points. They're now expected to win by 25.5. They were like 24-point favorites earlier. So I think just Braylon Allen's just looking like more of a good play. Baylor is 4-point underdogs to Oklahoma, which I think Vegas is, people are saying that this game's going to be close, and the total is 62.5. So I think like both sides of this game, they're really good for DFS. And then the last one was just West Virginia being 6-point favorites to Kansas State. Just I think close enough where like Letty Brown, we were talking about him earlier, is more interesting. But yeah, I mean, any final thoughts before we sign off here? I appreciate you guys all watching and listening, and we'll be in the Discord until lineup lock and throughout the day for injury updates. But Pete, anything before for you before we sign off?
No, not really. It's just I got to figure out how I'm gonna go with third runner back or third or fourth receiver.
Yeah. Time to pivot and make the wrong pivots, right? As we always do. Exactly. All right. Well, then, you can follow us on Twitter here. Pete, what's your handle? Just I don't have it off the top of my head here.
It's
at YFC Sports Pete. I have it right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at the screen right now. I couldn't remember it. So yeah, YFC Sports Pete.
And at Dan_Servadidio for me. Tune in every Saturday morning. We'll be back next week, and good luck in week 11 DFS college football. Here we come. Thanks, guys.